So here. So let's learn something today. Love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving men to heights of super achievement. Well, you heard that well. When combined, these three emotions may lift one to an attitude of a genius. Also, we learned that no man can avail himself of the forces of his creative imagination while dissipating them. Let's see. Dissipating or disappear. Disappear or vanish. Where we have the word avail. Help or aid. Help or aid. So no man can help or aid himself of the forces of his God imagination while dissipating them, while disappearing or vanishing them. Marianne writes, Edelman, quote, "We must not, in trying to think about how we can make a big difference, ignore the small daily differences we can make, which over time add up to big differences that we often cannot foresee." Ignore the small. So don't ignore the small. Make which over time add up to a big difference, but that we often cannot foresee. And then the quotes by Leo Tolstoy. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. To the point. So we must change ourselves first to change the world, basically. Okay, what else? Some important stuff that we can get. Another quote by John F. Kennedy. There are risks and costs to a program of action, but they are far less than the long-range risks and costs of comfortable inaction. Comfortable inaction. Comfortable inaction. So we have to take actions for sure. 100%. No question asked on that. Major force of love may spend itself and pass away, like a fire which has burned itself out, but it leaves behind indelible marks as evidence that it passed that way. So marks evidence that it passed that way. Its departure often prepares the human heart for a still greater love. For still greater love. So basically, his departure often prepares the human heart for a still greater love. That actually happened to me with the jobs. So every time you change a job, actually just a better one. It's not the worst one, thankfully, because of the mindsets. Yeah, it's just how it works. for a still greater love. Um, then we have also the emotion of love brings out and develops the artistic and the aesthetic nature of man. It leaves its impress upon one's very soul, even after the fire has been subdued by time and circumstances. It leaves its impress upon one's very soul, and even after fire has been subdued by time and circumstances. Then we have a quote from Aristotle: what it lies in our power to do, it lies in our power not to do. In our power not to do. I'm gonna read some text. It is inherent desire of man to please woman, which gives woman the power to make or break a man, which we all know that. The woman who understands man's nature and tactfully caters to it need have no fear of competition from other women. Men may be giants with indomitable willpower when dealing with other men, but they are easily managed by women of their choice. Most men will not admit that they are easily influenced by the woman they prefer, because it is in the nature of the male to want to be recognized as the stronger of the species. So it's the nature of the man to want to be recognized as the stronger of the species. Moreover, the intelligent woman recognizes these manly traits and very wisely makes no issue of it. Some men know that they are being influenced by the woman of their choice, their wives, sweethearts, mothers, or sisters, but they tactfully refrain from rebelling against the influence because they're intelligent enough to know that no man is happy or complete without the modifying influence of the right woman. This is the key word. The right. So again, some men know that they're being influenced by the women of their choice, their wives, sweethearts, mothers, or sisters, but they tactfully refrain from rebelling against the influence because they're intelligent enough to know that no man is happy or complete without the modifying influence of the right woman. So it has to be the right one. The man who does not recognize this important truth deprives himself of the power which has done more to help man achieve success than all other forces combined. Okay. So we can write here, man's greatest motivating force is his desire to please woman. To please woman. So these are one of the main key points from this text here. Also, man who accumulates a lot of fortunes and attain to great heights of power and fame do so mainly to satisfy their desire to please women. Well, not for all people, I guess, but for most of it, I suppose. And we have some questions to answer here. What is the most helpful idea from this chapter for you? So this chapter was about sex transmutation. So what is the most helpful idea from chapter for you? What does Napoleon mean by sex transmutation? That's a good question. What are the 10 mind stimulus? What is the sixth sense and how does it develop genius? Where do ideas or hunches come from? Review the story about Dr. Elmer Gates, page 205. So this is the person who was being paid to think basically for other corporation, and he wasn't paid well. But yeah, he was paid actually for these corporations to think basically for them. And how he would sit for ideas. Basically, if you have any issue, you will just sit. He will just think for you, kind of sort of. And then how can you do this in your life? And Napoleon Hill writes, no man can avail or help himself of the forces of his creative imagination while dissipating them or while destroying them or disappear or vanish while vanishing them. How have you disappeared or vanished rather than used your creative force in the past? How have you disappeared or vanished rather than used your creative force in the past? So let's answer those questions. So what is the most helpful idea from this chapter? What does Napoleon mean by sex transmutation? Masterminds. So the meaning of the word transmute is the simple language, the changing or transferring of element or form of energy into another. The emotion of sex brings into being a state of mind. What does it mean by sex transmutation? So it means switching of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. You can underline that. Switching of the mind from thoughts or ideas or the notions of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. Sex desire is the most parallel of human desires. Driven by this desire, man develop keenness or sharpness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creativity unknown to them at other times. So basically, that's what does it mean. So he means switching of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. Also, we learned the 10-mind stimulus. 10-mind stimulus, page 201. So 10-mind stimulus will be desire for sex expression, love, a burning desire for fame, power, or financial gain, money. Fourth, music. Fifth, friendship between either those of the same sex or those of the opposite sex. Sixth one, a mastermind, alliance based upon the harmony of the two or more people who ally themselves for spiritual or temporal advancement. You will find this basically in the companies where two people actually like um so basically they work in a harmony and they create like huge company. The reason why, because they've been in the harmony, because they work as a one. Doesn't matter even if you have 10 people, or they actually work as a one because they work in harmony, because they ally themselves for the same aim, temporal advancement. Seventh, mutual suffering, such as that experienced by people who are persecuted or abused. Autosuggestion. Eighth, or also self-suggestion. Ninth is going to be fear, and then 10th we have narcotic and alcohol, of course, the worst. Those are the 10s of the mind stimulus that we have. And then that was the question actually, what are the 10 mind stimulus? So those are the 10 ones. What is the sixth sense and how does it develop genius? Sixth sense. I didn't find that. Sixth sense. Well, the sixth sense. Okay, there you go. Genius is developed through the sixth sense. So the reality of a sixth sense has been fairly well established. The sixth sense is creative imagination. So basically we are going to underline that. And just put square, so we know it's important. So the faculty of creative imagination, or the power of creative imagination, is one which the majority of people never use during an entire lifetime. And if used at all, it usually happens by mere or just accidents. Relatively small number of people use with deliberation or on purpose, and purpose affords the faculty or the power of creative imagination. Those who use this faculty voluntarily or on purpose and with understanding of its functions are genii or geniuses. So that's abbreviation that this book uses, genii or geniuses. So basically we can say, what is the sixth sense and how does it develop genius? So the sixth sense will be, I can put it here, sixth sense. So the sixth sense is creative imagination. And how does it develop genius? So how does it develop the genius? Let's see. How does it develop a genius? So the faculty or the power of creative imagination is a direct link between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence. All so-called revelations or disclosure refer to in the realm of religion, and all discoveries of basics or new principles in the field of invention take places through the faculty or the power of creative imagination. How to develop genius? When ideas or concepts flash into one's mind through what is popularly called a hunch, they come from one or more of the following sources. Okay, this is another question. Um, this is another question. Okay. So it says, what is sixth sense? We know sixth sense is actually the creative imagination. We know that. And how does it develop genius? So how does the sixth sense of creative imagination actually create a genius? So how does it create genius? So I would state that the way it creates genius. Okay, also revelation for religion. It's kind of tricky. How does it create genius? So basically, I would say, how does it create imagination? The creative imagination functions best when the mind is vibrating due to some form of mind stimulation, which will learn 10 mind stimulus at an exceedingly high rate. That is when the mind is functioning at a rate of vibration higher than the ordinary normal thought. When brain action has been stimulated through one or more of the 10 mind stimulants which we mentioned before, it has the effect of lifting the individual or the person far above the horizon of ordinary thoughts and permits him to envision distant scope and quality of thoughts not available on the lower plane, such as that occupied while one is engaged in solution of the problems of business and professional routine. Engaged in solution of the problems. So again, if we go back to how does develop genius? So I develop genius. Let's read more. Again, the sixth sense is the faculty of the power which marks the difference between a genius and ordinary individual. And then the question asks, how does it develop? The creative faculty of power becomes more alert and receptive to vibrations originating outside the individual's subconscious mind. The more this faculty is used, or the power, the more the individual, the person relies upon it and makes demands upon it for thought impulses. This faculty of power can be cultivated or used and developed only through use. So you have to train it. So how does it develop genius? So it develops through different exercises, I would say so. Because you have to train it. Because how does it develop genius? Because it's creative. So that's the way it develops actually the genius. Because it's creative. And then you can only actually advance or improve your creative imagination through the use or practices or training. As it says here, this faculty of power can be cultivated and developed only through use. So we have to kind of use it like everything else. You have to kind of use it to improve it. The next question, where do ideas or hunches come from? Let's see, how many questions do we have here? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Where do ideas or hunches come from? We're gonna go back to that. So we're just gonna put here 6 sense hunches. So where do ideas or the notions or hunches come from? When ideas or concepts flash into one's mind through what is popularly called a hunch, they come from one or more of the following sources. So they are coming from through first one, infinite intelligence. Second, one subconscious mind where in is stored every sense, impression, and thought. Impulse which ever reached the brain through any of the 5 senses. So these are the things you have to know. What are the 5 senses? You have to know about the subconscious mind. So everything is connected. So it's kind of sort of, you have to kind of read all the book to kind of connect all the dots and understand everything. Because I didn't read on subconscious mind. I'm just about to read. But yeah, you have to. That's why I like this book. So again, first one was intelligence, infinite intelligence. Second one was one subconscious mind, wherein is stored every sense, impression, and thought, impulse which ever reached the brain through any of the 5 senses. Third one, from the mind of some other person who has just released thought or picture of the idea or concept through conscious thought. Who just released the thought. So this is basically when somebody suggests you, when some other person, let's assume your friends, release the thought or draws the picture, I would say so. And then basically you kind of convert that. You kind of convert that into your own, and you basically create your own pattern. You know, that's actually how it gets like a transmuted, altered, or changed. And then the fourth one will be from the other person's subconscious storehouse. So this is the thing with this book. From the other person subconscious storehouse. So you have to really know what's the storehouse. You have to really know those tricky words, which I'm still discovering, but that's why you're learning. So there's nothing wrong if you don't know any of those or if you don't understand, because you will eventually, along the way, as you read and as you go back and forth, you will actually understand some words such as what does he meant from the other person's subconscious storehouse. Yeah. And then we have the story of Elmer Gates, page 205. So this story, so basically says how he will sit for ideas. How can you do this in your life? So basically this story is about the doctor who actually created 200 useful patents, and then also created all of them through the process of cultivating and using the creative faculty. So he used the two powers, process of cultivating and using the creative faculty. So basically the creative faculty we learned that from before, the sixth sense. So that's how he created his patterns. So the thing with him is that he, in his laboratory, he had his personal communication room. So it's practically soundproof, and then it was soundproof, and then he will arrange all lights could be shut down. So they give it a small table on which he kept a pad of writing paper. In front of the table on the wall was an electric push button which controlled the lights. So when Dr. Gates desired to draw upon the forces available to him through the creative imagination or the sixth sense, he will go into his room, seat himself at the table, shut off the lights. So basically the room will be dark, and concentrate upon the known factors of the invention on which he was working, remaining in that position until it begin to flash. So basically sit down in the room and just like focus your mind on what you want to create. Basically that's what it is. And then he will sit until ideas begin to flash into his mind in connection with the unknown factors of the invention. So basically it will come from the ether, I would say. So there was one occasion that ideas would come so fast that he was actually writing for 3 hours. So when the thoughts stopped flowing, he examined his notes. He found they contained a minute description of principles which had not a parallel among the known data of the scientific world. Moreover, the answer to his problem was intelligently presented in these notes. So basically, he had answers from those moments when he was spending time in the room. So in this manner, Dr. Gates completed over 200 patents, which is incredible, which had begun but not completed by half-baked brains. So actually, this is really important to emphasize. So which had begun but not completed by half-baked brains. Evidence of the truth of this statement is in the United States Patents Office. So what happens is people will bring ideas. They will bring ideas to the table, which is half of it, half baked, and then you will have a Dr. Gates, a genius guy, lock himself in the room, and then spend time getting using the power of the sixth sense, which is the creative faculty, creative power, to actually complete this idea by sitting and thinking how actually to complete whatever he was accomplishing. Just incredible. That's the sixth sense, that's the creative, or that's the creative faculty or creative power that we should use. We should use that. But again, as we learned, it comes through the practice. Practice is everything. And then we have the last or the seventh question to answer. Napoleon Hill writes, no man can avail or aid himself of the forces of his creative imagination while dissipating them or while dispersing them. How have you dissipated or have issues with remembering the words. How have you vanish, disperse? Let's just put it here. Dissipate, vanish, or disperse. Napoleon writes, no man can avail or help himself of the forces of his creative imagination while dissipating or vanishing them. How have you dissipated or vanished rather than used your creative forces in the past? This is the thing I like about the questions. They really kind of force you to think. Really kind of force you to think and to concentrate and think of all the stuffs that you didn't even think of. That's the thing. So it basically gets your brain. It makes your brain to work because it's asking a question and it's requiring your brain basically to work, to think, to think of the answer, think of the solution. How have you dissipated or dispersed or vanished rather than used your creative forces in the past? Luckily, in my case, I really use creative imagination in my life a lot. Of course, this is all thanks to Think and Grow Rich book, which I'm reading right now. The specific chapter is it's going to be the mystery of sex transmutation. But yeah, this was really helpful for me in life to use actually creative imagination or also the sixth sense. So it's really important to use them, creative imagination. So yeah, I will recommend everyone to actually start using them, because in order to improve it, as we mentioned before, you have to use it, as it said here before. So this faculty can be cultivated and developed only through use, same as everything else I would say in life. So it can be developed only through use. And we all have to remember that everything is trainable. We can always learn. Everything can be developed. Of course, to develop something, we have to do something, which is, in this case, in the creative faculty, we have to use it. We have to kind of engage in those things, like I also sometimes will just like a walk and just like go for a walk and then let your creative imagination work. You know, it's to practice. So you can practice it even if you walk, even if you sit. So basically it's isolation of the mind, I will say so. That's to be creative. You know, it's like isolating yourself. Do you have to be alone to use creative imagination? I would say so, because that's how you enter that other form. Because if you have many distractions, that's the reason why this doctor will go in his room, which is a soundproof, which basically once you enter there, it's like you're entering some other like a universe or something, you know. So basically isolated. So you're not in this moment, you're changing your state of mind from this place to another. So once you go there, you can think more. Yeah, and also, as mentioned before, you have to, um, as we read before here, uh, where was that? Yeah, we learned that the cut imagination, the sixth sense, functions best when the mind is vibrating due to some form of mind stimulations, which we mentioned 10 of them, then still in high rates. So when the mind is functioning at a rate of vibrating higher than the ordinary normal thought. So that's actually what happens is your brain now vibrates at the normal rates, but once you in this doctor case, once he entered the room, he actually, how can you say that, switched, turned, like he went to higher vibration because he changed state of mind. And then now he's getting capabilities to receive those ideas or the notions through that faculty, actually, because he changed state of mind, and now his brain is working at exceedingly high rates, so his mind is more stimulated versus when he was out of that room. So that's actually how you become genius. I'm really hopeful that this will be helpful for everybody who is watching this one. Sometimes I read books like this because I'm not working today, but yeah, before I didn't record like this when I was reading, but now I want to record because I want to help people and then give some advices and maybe you learn something because we always every day we learn something. Everybody has something to share, something to learn. Specific in this part, this is really specific if you're having issues in your life, or if you're a photographer, or if you are in psychology, or if you are to be counselor, life coach. This is really helpful. This will be really helpful. Even just in general life, this will be really helpful to help you achieve and get some, should I say, some secrets. It's so you will get some secrets and learn some new things just by basically listening. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up and thank you very much. Whoever is watching, whoever started from beginning, I really appreciate. And then I'll see you probably in chapter 12, the subconscious mind, the connecting link, the 11th step toward riches. Thank you very much.